Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. I am here with my recap and highlights of July 2021. It's a couple days later than I would normally be filming and releasing this video, but I've been away over the weekend briefly, so I'm just kind of getting to it now, which means I'll be picking my reading cards and my animal for August a little bit late, but that's okay. I'm looking forward to sharing with you some of what I've been up to in July and what I've been reading, the decks I've been working with, and all the usual things that I include in these updates. So first and foremost, I think in July for me is about weather. I really like warm weather. I really struggle with cold weather. And so I feel like a lot of what this month has been for me has just been trying to get outside and stay outside as much as I can, as much as possible. And I feel like particularly having worked online for the past year and a bit, it's like even more important for me to be spending a lot of time outdoors because I've spent so much time by necessity in front of a screen. And for me, that's indoors. So I've just been swimming, hiking, walking, gardening, doing yard work, sitting on the deck with a rattler, reading a book, barbecuing, anything outdoors. I've been trying to get in as much as I possibly can. What that has also included is a couple of nice little getaways. So earlier on in July, I went and I slept in a tent on the property of my dear friend's family cottage. We're still, being mindful of distancing and things like this. Her family's at the cottage. Her parents are elderly. So I went and spent time there, but I did sleep in the tent as opposed to being inside the cottage with the family. That was great. I did this last summer as well. It is so beautiful there. To be able to sleep so close to the water, and their cottage is on a bit of a point into a lake. So sleeping on the point means having water on 3 sides of the tent, which is amazing. I'm going to insert here a short video clip of my tent setup in the yard there. So this is one of my favorite places to spend time. I love my friend's cottage. I'm so grateful to be able to get to go, whether it's for a day trip or to spend a couple of days, and sleeping outside in that tent is just magical. We had a campfire and had some drinks and just relaxed, and it was so nice to just unwind for a little bit. My friend had some time off work, so we could just chill. And that was a really good time. Then towards the very end of July, into August for the long weekend. It's a long weekend here in Ontario. I'm not sure if it's a long weekend other places, but my partner and I went up north a little bit from us, like 2 hours drive, I guess, going northeast. And we spent 3 nights in a cabin for our 4th anniversary, and that was really nice as well. The cabin was pretty small cabin, but plenty of space considering when I'm on a cabin vacation, I'm not going to be indoors very much if I don't have to be. It was not too rustic, we'll say. There was a cistern with a sink for washing dishes indoors, and we were in a cabin, not a tent. We had an outhouse, we had a barbecue, so we had quite a lot of amenities compared to tent camping that I would do maybe more often. But it was a really good trip, even though, unfortunately, the weather did not exactly cooperate. Normally, when we go away on this long weekend, which we always do for anniversary, it's sunny and warm, and we're swimming and hiking and canoeing and all of these things that we love to do. This weekend that just passed was like substantially colder and rainier than the week before it, and substantially colder and rainier than this week is shaping up to be so far. So we got not the best weather. I did not put my swimsuit on once. It was going down to like 4 degrees Celsius overnight. It rained most of the time. We could only have one campfire out of the 3 nights we were there because it was too wet and too cold to sit outside. But we did get an incredible canoe in. We went to a lake called Little Essen Lake, and we canoed there for 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours, and went all the way around this small lake and did not see another human the entire time we were there. We went to a public boat launch, put our canoe in, and we saw geese and loons and other animals. And there were a couple of cottages on the lake. It was mostly not built up at all, but there were a couple of cottages in that on one side of the lake, but we didn't see anyone, even though it was a long weekend. And the weather at that point was actually not raining. So that was incredible. It was so quiet and so peaceful. Amazing canoe. We got a little bit of hiking in, and other than that, just barbecued dinners and sat out on the front porch of the cabin, which was covered, and had a relaxing time. I did something that I very rarely do, which is turn on my auto reply on my work emails saying that I was out of the office for a couple of days, and here's who anybody could contact if they needed something, but I would not be answering email for a few days. And I actually didn't check it, which I usually will put it on and I'll still check it anyway, and I'll say that I'm going on vacation and not checking email, but then I'll check it anyway. This time I was like, no, I'm not checking my email. I am getting away. And that is what I did. And so I was there for the August 1st cross-quarter day, which for me, I think of as midsummer. It didn't feel very summery weather-wise, but that's what I conceptualize as midsummer, which is Lammas or Lunasa for some folks in the Northern Hemisphere. And for that, I enjoyed a nice tarot reading with the Tarot of Trees. I did a little bit of wonder walking while I was there. I didn't film any of my wonder walks, but I enjoyed bringing that deck along as well. And just relaxed. And then had a fire on the 1st as well, which was fantastic. So good to get away for a little while. Other than all the outdoor time, I've been continuing along with my AODA druidry work, practicing my sphere of protection ritual every day, trying to build up towards having a more regular meditation practice. I do find it challenging, but having this framework for it has been really helpful for me, I think, and I'm enjoying the journey. I've been exploring Om and learning a bit about Om. I'm very much a beginner, but I have purchased Kelly Fitzgerald's Om class, the replay, so it's asynchronous recordings to watch, and a couple of books on Om, which I don't have to share in my reading account for this month because I'm not done any of them, but I will be sharing some Om books at a later date. And reading about my local landscape, which is also part of the druidry path that I'm exploring. So that's all been really great, and July has been a good month, full of, for the most part, sunshine, except for the 3 days that I was at a cabin, unfortunately. But overall, great month with lots of time outside. I also got a haircut, but now it's so far into the month that I'm almost due for another haircut. I'm getting it cut again tomorrow. But after months and months of shutdown, I finally got a haircut. So that was also a happy highlight of the month. Decks that I bought or received this month. I only purchased one deck in July, and that was the Celtic Tree Oracle, a system of divination, And this is by Liz and Colin Murray, illustrated by Vanessa Card. And this is published by Red Wheel. This is an older deck, I think. It's definitely not brand new release or anything. And I got this one, of course, because I'm doing this Ohm class and studying Ohm. I would like to eventually make some wooden staffs for reading Ohm, but I haven't done that yet, and that is a bit of a ways off. So I did get this deck. And it's a cool one. It comes with a good hardcover guidebook inside the box. It also comes with a very large spread of 15 cards, which is not something I intend to do, really, if I'm honest. That feels really overwhelming. It comes with a kind of notepad that you can fill in your spreads with, and then the cards themselves. I looked at a couple of different options for Ohm and learning to read Ohm, and there were several different decks available, but after looking at some of Kelly Fitzgerald's recommendations and preferences and kind of her ideas about why one might choose one deck over another or one tool over another, I went with this one. The artwork I really like. I like the limited color palette on these cards. If one will focus. There is Baith or Birch. And I like these cards aesthetically, but I also like the fact that they have the FID, the Ohm, is very prominent there. They have the names in Irish and English down here. And so they can almost be a little bit like a flashcard as well, when I'm still learning to pair the name and the FID, or the letter. So helping me to study and to remember, for example, that luge looks like this and fern looks like that, and so on. So I really, really like this deck. I have not yet done a reading with it. I'm still very much just familiarizing myself with the different Ohm Theta and developing associations for them and reading about them in different sources and kind of collating from different books and things, seeing what a bunch of different books have to say about, say, one letter, and kind of building my own associations from that, which is something that I like to do when I'm learning a new system. So I'm not really reading them yet, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm really enjoying learning about the history and so on. I also received one deck this month that I did not buy in July, but I had backed previously, and that was the Transient Light Tarot by Ari Weisner. I did make a video about this deck. Suffice to say, it was a bit of a spontaneous Kickstarter backing, if I'm honest. It wasn't one that I had really followed much, if at all, in the creation phase, but one that when I saw it, I really liked a lot about it. I like, again, the limited color palette that the deck has. I like that it is pip-ish. I like that there is not a binary approach to gender in this deck. I like the card retitles. So we've got the Defender instead of the Emperor. And I really like how the minors are done. They're not straightforwardly pips, but they're certainly pip-ish, but with a nod to some Smith-Waite meanings as well, which I really, really like. And so I'm really happy with this deck, as I'm sure my walkthrough made quite clear. Really, really happy. I have not yet really made use of the extra cards. I keep them at the back, but I can use them for making spread positions. I don't think I will ever shuffle them in, but they're a cool inclusion anyway. Really, really like this. And so in terms of decks that I've been using this month, this is the deck that I think wins in terms of the most readings performed with a single deck. It would definitely be the Transient Light Tarot. I haven't been able to put it down. I love shuffling it. I love looking at it. So it's been on my table the entire month. I've also been exploring a deck that I got in June and somehow managed to forget to put in my my video for June, but it arrived in June, and it's a deck that I bought from my friend Manuela over at Place of Stillness. And that deck, which I've mentioned in another video as well, but that deck is the travel edition of the Dust to Onyx. So in some ways, this is not a new deck to me because I have the full size deck. I've had the full size deck for quite a long time now. I'm not sure how long this deck has been in publication, but I got it quite early on. So the images of this deck are not new to me, but having the travel one is. And I've really been enjoying that because it means that I've been able to bring this along with me when I've been, out of town or traveling or doing a reading somewhere other than my reading table, in ways that I never did with, and never do, never will, with the big version because I'm protective of it and wouldn't want anything to happen to it. So even just reading in other parts of my house that aren't my tarot table, I don't take the larger deck so much, but having this one I've been able to, so I've been really enjoying that as well. And I'm glad that Manuela thought of me when she was deciding to move this deck along, because it was definitely on my list and I was happy to buy her copy. I also bought this month, it's not a deck, but it's deck related. I bought some Peggy bags, which I thought I would share with you. I'd had one bag from Peggy Papez before, and I'll link Peggy's shop below, Sparks Creations, on Etsy. I'd had one before, but this time I decided I would get a couple as a treat. When there's a few up, that suited the decks that I was looking for bags for, I have my little post-it of decks that need new homes. So there were a few that spoke to me, and so I got those. It's nice with Peggy being based in Canada as well. We have domestic shipping, so that's nice. It's pretty quick, and I appreciate that. So I got 3 Peggy bags. 2 of them are for decks that I already have, and 1 is for a deck that actually I don't have yet, but I know I wanted a bag for. So the first one I got is this small zigzag patterned one. And the deck that I am putting in there, which currently is just living in this paper, or was currently just living in this paper, now it has a new home. These bags just arrived today. So technically August, but I'm showing them now because I'm excited. I have a prototype of the 18 Oracle by Colin Campbell. Some of you may have seen these cards. They're not in publication. It's a prototype. They're in order right now. But this bag just leapt out as being perfect because with the color palette being what it is, how perfect is that? It's like it's made for it. And so with this deck also being a small one, the 18 Oracle has 18 cards. The smaller size bag I also figured would fit well, and that's just perfect. So I got that bag. The next one I chose was this one here, blue. I really like these kind of fold over style ones. You could do a spread on this part if you wanted to fold it out. But really I just like especially how they fit on a shelf really nicely. And the deck that I'm going to put in this bag is the Water Drop Oracle. Now all I have, this was a deck that I uploaded the images onto Make Playing Cards and had sent to me. It was made with a bunch of images on a blog, shared there as like, you can print these and make your own deck if you would like to. I wrote Water Drop Oracle on the box. I don't know the creator's name of this deck. Again, if anybody knows it, tell me. But the Water Drop Oracle is, of course, featuring water droplets. There's the back with keywords. And I've tried to find these images again, like find the website where I downloaded these from, but I can't seem to find it, and I wonder if the website is now non-existent. I remember that the website also had a plant deck, you know, similarly with a bunch of images shared. I never did save or print that one, but obviously as a Pisces, this one spoke to me immediately, and I got it. But all I've ever had for it is the tuck box from the Make Playing Cards. So this one reminded me of water drops. And so I figured this is a tarot-sized oracle. Get the tarot bag, and it can live in here. Just make sure that it's wrapped nicely. And I will wrap it around like this. And so now there's the new home for my Water Drop Oracle. I'm very happy with that. The third one I don't actually have a deck for, but I have a deck that is a Kickstarter deck that I don't have yet that I know is going to go in this bag. And it's a floral one. And so the deck going into it is going to be called the Flora Tarot. There's the bag, so the inside is black, and then the outside that wraps around is this beautiful floral pattern. And Flora Tarot I backed on Kickstarter some time ago. I've completed the survey, but the deck is not shipped yet. I'm really looking forward to it. And Flora Tarot is black and white, and it's a, as the name suggests, plant-based tarot deck. I'm really looking forward to this deck. I'll definitely share it when I receive it. It is going to be produced in a tuck box, and so I knew with it being a tuck box, I would want a bag to go around the tuck box, and so this one was the one I chose for that. So those are my purchases of the month. Books I've read this month is the next thing. So for books I've read this month, I don't have a single hard copy book to show you. Everything I read this month was either a library book, which I have returned, because I always return my library books on time. I do renew them though. Or is an ebook, which I read on my lovely e-reader. So yeah, no nice covers to show you this month. And it wasn't, for me, a very reading heavy month. I read 8 books, which 8 books is not, is not a lot for me, actually. Going by the last several months, 8 books is a smaller number. But I've been outside swimming in the pool and doing a lot of walking and not reading quite as much as usual. I also read some books that took me some more time. So 8 books is good. I'm happy with that. And it's never really the quantity that matters anyway. So we'll tell you a little bit about the 8 books that I read anyway. 2 of them I feel like I can just talk about together. These were both library books. One was called Nature and the Kawarthas, which is by the Peterborough Field Naturalists. And the other is Peterborough and the Kawarthas, edited by Peter Adams and Colin Taylor. And I live in the Kawartha Lakes region of Ontario, central Ontario. And so these are books that are about the ecology and wildlife and geological history and formation of the environments that I live in. And part of why I'm reading these, the main kind of motivation for reading these kinds of books right now, is that part of the first year curriculum for the Ancient Order of Druids in America, which I've recently joined and I've mentioned before, is this idea of wildcrafting your own druidry locally. So basing your practice on the landscape in which you live, right? As a nature-based or earth-based spiritual path, rooting that in the environment that you live in. So part of that first year curriculum, which you kind of self-design but within parameters, is to read 9 or more books about your local ecology. So for each person completing it, those selection of books will obviously be different, but these are 2 of the books that I picked for mine. And I enjoyed them both for different reasons. The Nature and the Kawarthas book was, very short chapters, 3 or 4 page chapters with lots of beautiful photos of different species that live in the region. And then Peterborough and the Kawarthas is a collection that also included things like climate and weather and soil and hydrology, and also animal and plant life and human geography as well. So things like shifts in populations in the region and things like this. So I enjoyed both of those about my local area. Then I have a couple of science fiction to share with you. I read 2 books that are forthcoming. They're not yet published. I received these advanced copies through NetGalley, so thank you to NetGalley. So the first one I read, that was very early in the month now, so I have to think back. I read Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I had never read Adrian Tchaikovsky before. My mom had, and really liked his book that she had read. And Shards of Earth is the new forthcoming one that's going to be the first in a series. It was a good one. I liked Shards of Earth a lot. I liked that it had a interesting kind of, we'll say like eclectic crew on a spaceship, which is something that I like. Thinking about things like the Firefly TV show, things like this. It's an interesting crew that kind of feels a little bit thrown together by circumstance, but that functions together in a good way. And they are facing a mysterious enemy that has tremendous power and has destroyed a number of planets and moons, like inhabited worlds. And so that's a big part of the book. And then there's a lot of kind of, interplanetary kind of politicking going on as well. So that was a good one, kind of right up my alley as a space opera. I really enjoyed it. The other one that I had to get, and I knew I would read the second I saw it, was fan fiction by Brent Spiner. So for folks who don't know who Brent Spiner is the actor who played Data on Star Trek Next Generation. And he has a forthcoming book called Fan Fiction. And this one was so much fun and so weird. I don't know exactly what I expected. When I started reading this, I just kind of saw Brent Spiner and clicked that I would like to read it. But it follows a actor by the name of Brent Spiner who is acting in a television program by the name of Star Trek Next Generation, who begins to receive scary, menacing communications from someone who is essentially stalking him, sending these strange packages and making threats towards him and threats towards people in his life. And so he is navigating this danger. And so there's an element in the book that's a mystery, who's sending these packages and why. But really, I feel like fan fiction is just a book that is written for fans of Star Trek Next Generation. It's, of course, full of references to the other actors who played the various characters in Star Trek Next Generation, refers directly to episodes of the show. So as a serious fan, I very much enjoyed that, and it was really funny. So I enjoyed fan fiction a lot. The next couple are book club reads. So for book club reads this month, I read the Rumi Prescription by Melody Moise, and we picked this for Katey Flowers' Blossom Book Club, and I will link Katey Flowers' Patreon, where the book club lives, below. And we had picked this book, I think, in a vote, and then Katey went on a bit of a hiatus from doing the book club, put on a bit of a break, has come back, and so now we've read this book together, and I'm so glad that this book was picked. So the Rumi Prescription follows Melody. It's an autobiographical or memoir book, and her experiences exploring Rumi's poetry and also translating Rumi with her father, who is a very serious Rumi buff and Rumi reader. And Melody is a feminist. She has bipolar. She is a public speaker who talks about mental health, who talks about gender and feminism. And I love this book. I thought it was so great. I think that pretty much everybody else who read the book in the reading group loved the book as well. So good. The way that Melody just describes certain things, certain experiences, really resonated with me and felt just so like, yes, that is exactly what that is like. So much so. Particularly, when she's talking about, in terms of something that I can really relate to, talking about, experiences with sexism and, experiences as a feminist and articulating oneself as a feminist. I could really relate to the ways that she talked about that, and some of the, reactions that you get. I could really relate to when she was talking about that. And I had never read any of Rumi's poetry before. I knew very little about Rumi's poetry before, but the book was very approachable, very accessible, and in many ways I feel like the book is really about the development of, or kind of trajectory of, her relationship with her father. And I really loved reading about her interactions with her father, who sounds absolutely hilarious and wonderful. So I really, really enjoyed the Rumi Prescription. Definitely outside of my usual kinds of books that I normally gravitate towards, but this is why I love book clubs. To be able to find books that I wouldn't have necessarily found otherwise. I'm very good at finding sci-fi and fantasy books, but other kinds of contemporary books I don't necessarily, know what's being newly released. I don't necessarily have the same easy ways of finding my next read, so I really am appreciative of the Blossom Book Club for that. We also finished The Conductors by Nicole Glover, which I read with Corvin over at Tailraven Tarot in the Tailraven Book Club. And The Conductors was so good. I really liked it. I suggested it as our read, and I'm glad that I did. It is a book that follows Hetty and Benji, who are a married couple, who are former Underground Railroad conductors. And in the book, they are solving mysteries in Philadelphia after the Civil War has ended. And there are kind of supernatural and magical elements to the book. I really enjoyed how Nicole Glover developed this system of magic involving sigils that are based on constellations and following the stars as a type of magic making in this book. I love Hetty as a character, who's the main character of the book. She is a very determined woman, stubborn, skilled, so smart. And I am so glad that The Conductors is the first book in a series, because I'm going to pick up the second one, no question. And I feel like what really stood out to me, besides Hetty being amazing, and Benji as well, her husband is also a great character. Besides the magic being interesting and the mystery being compelling, I feel like Nicole Glover's character development in this book is incredible. And this kind of milieu of people who form Hetty and Benji's community of folks living in post-Civil War Philadelphia in the Black community. This community felt really real to me reading this book. The kind of interpersonal dynamics were developed really, really well, while the book predominantly was focusing on essentially a murder mystery. And just the way that Nicole Glover writes these scenes where all these different characters are interacting, and there's one scene that was like a funeral scene where all these different characters in the community are having these different kind of conversations with each other and are thinking kind of different things about each other. And it was just so well written in that way that these interactions felt so real to me. So I'm really looking forward to reading the next one. Then for the next couple of books, I'll mention the last two. The last two books are inspired by my TBR cards for the month. So I had picked 3 TBR cards for July. And I had chosen Next Level, Read a Sequel. I had chosen Throwback, written prior to 2000. Again, I think it's hilarious that Throwback only goes past 2000. I try to pick an older book when I get this card. And Epistolary, reading an epistolary novel. So I did some combining here. And I decided to combine the sequel and the pre-2000 to read A Bond Undone, which is the Legend of the Condor Heroes Book 2 by Jin Young. It's a wuxia novel following a young, emergent kung fu fighter, Guo Jing, and he, is going on these adventures. And I had read the first book some time ago. I'd enjoyed it. My brother really likes these books, so I had wanted to read some more. And this one just picks up exactly where the first book left off. The translations are fairly recent for this series, but The Legends of the Condor Heroes was initially written in, I think, the 1950s, and it was serialized, so like little chunks of it being released at a time. And so now the book series that's being released in English translation, a certain amount of those serial installments will be gathered together, and that will be book 1, and then the next one, book 2. So it really just picks off exactly where book 1 left off, because this would have just been a point in the series, right? And there was so much good banter in this book that I really liked. There are all these different kung fu masters of different schools who have these kind of long-standing relationships of respectful rivalry with each other, and I really liked reading about those. And it's funny. It involves a lot of humor, I think, while also being dramatic. And I felt like I feel like I liked the writing in this one more than the first one. It was a different translator in book 2 for Legends of the Condor Heroes than book 1. I cannot read the untranslated version. And I just found, if I had any criticism of the first book, some of the conversation felt kind of like not smooth, if that makes sense. Like it just felt a little bit possibly overly literal. And this one, I felt like it just flowed a lot better. So I really enjoyed it. And for my last TBR card of the month, Write Me, an epistolary novel. I cheated. I stayed within the spirit of the prompt, I think, at least to my own satisfaction, but I didn't read a novel. I actually read a collection of short stories, which was I'm Waiting for You and Other Stories by Kim Bo-young. And this collection was 4 stories. Each, there's 2 forming a pair, so they're interconnected. And 2 of them are epistolary in form, so they are letters. And I loved this collection. This is philosophical science fiction at its best. I'm Waiting for You and Other Stories. The 2 stories that are in the epistolary format follow 2 fiancés, a husband and wife, who are separated by time and space and trying to get back to Earth at the same time but traveling through time and space at different speeds in order to get married and not have to have one waiting for the other on Earth alone. And beautiful. And then the second two stories that are actually in the middle of the collection follow these kinds of godlike entities and their conversations as they merge with each other and split into new forms and interact with humans and have different ideas about interactions with humans. This one is really interesting. It has a glossary at the back, which I wish I had read before I had read the middle two stories. I think that it is really helpful. But I recommend this one to anyone who is interested in a more philosophical science fiction. It really looks at individualism and individuality and, you know, the ability of one person to change the entire universe, thinking about time and memory. And this book will be one that I'm thinking about for a long time, for sure. I'm Waiting for You and Other Stories by Kimbo Young. And I'll just share the epigraph from this little collection, which reads, "The way I see it, loving one person means loving the universe. When you do something for the sake of one person, you do something for the whole universe. A gift for one is a gift to all." And I think that that goes with the collection really, really well. So now I would like to draw some new TBR cards, and these are the TBR cards again from Jessie over at Bow Ties and Books. I'm looking forward to using these as always to pick some more reading material. I am going to take a chance and roll the D6 this time to see how many cards I should choose. I'm hoping it's not 6 because I already have some other reading on the go and it's a couple days into August already. But I like combining the cards and finding books that suit multiple prompts, so why not? A little bit of relief here. I only got 2, so 2 cards to read. Which 2 should I read for August? And of course, maybe these 2 cards will end up being one book, or maybe they'll be different books. We'll see. Okay. Read a book set in India. I have no idea what I'm going to choose for this prompt, but I will find something great. And read a book where the title starts with the first letter of your name. So, a book that starts with L. And a book set in India. So it may be a book that starts with L that is set in India, or maybe it will be 2. I'm going to have to do some investigating and see what I come up with. Last but not least, in the monthly update video, I wanted to share some animal learnings and reflections. So for July, the card that I chose is a Dragonfly, and this is from The Secret Language of Animals Oracle Cards by Chip Richards. And you can see here that I was just going to say code words. It's not code words. Keywords. Keywords. I don't know, I'm doing crossword puzzles or something. The keywords, which are not code words, are magic, spontaneity, immediacy, and change. So I looked at the book here as a jumping off point, but I also, since I've been reading about the local ecology of my area, was learning about dragonflies in that context as well. And it was nice to have an animal this month again that was one that I could actually see. I saw them while I was away at the cottage. I saw them while I was away for my anniversary. Dragonflies all over the place because I was around a lot of lakes this month, which is of course where dragonflies reproduce, is in lakes. I've learned that dragonflies are a very diverse family of creatures. They form an animal order called Odonata, which is dragonflies and damselflies together, or they're called odonates. And what this means, which I had never heard before and I thought was very interesting, is toothed ones. you don't always think about dragonflies. If you had to think about an animal that would be called the toothed ones, this would probably not be the one that you would think of, but they have very strong mandibles. So dragonflies and damselflies are the toothed ones. And I learned that of odonates or odonata, dragonflies and damselflies, in the provincial park that I was just at over the anniversary weekend a couple days ago, there are 112 species that have been observed there alone. So there are a lot of species of dragonflies that I cannot possibly get into, even most of them, let alone all of them. So I was thinking about dragonfly in a general sort of way for animal purposes, message purposes. And something that I feel like is maybe often thought about dragonflies, and this is why, something like immediacy would be a keyword, is their short lifespans, right? That they are only, flying around for perhaps a matter of weeks. However, their lifespan is only that short when you think about their adult life stage, right? Some dragonflies, I've learned, spend years, like up to 5 years, in the larval stage, underwater, where they breathe through gills that are located on their backsides. So their lives really are not only a few weeks long. They're sometimes months, and in many cases, many years, if the larval stage is taken into account. So that was interesting. Thinking about immediacy, but also that immediacy is not necessarily everything, right? There may be longevity as well that's not being thought about there. Dragonflies are really good flyers. They can fly very, very long distances, migrating, from continent to continent in some cases, fly in all directions, including backwards, can hover like a hummingbird in one place, can turn in place while flying. Just incredible. And they're a positive kind of sign in many, many different cultural contexts, a sign of transformation, of change, of healing in some instances. And I think that, like a lot of insects, we can think of them in terms of transformation as they go through these different stages, life stages. Though unlike, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, but Daryl is sneezing. Unlike butterflies, for example, the dragonflies don't have really a pupa stage. They go straight from larva to this. So that's an interesting way of thinking about the keywords of immediacy and change together that I learned about. And where I've kind of come to conclude in terms of my associations with dragonfly now, having read about them for a bit for the month and observing them as well, is not just change, but the constancy of change. And the reason that they remind me of the constancy of change, or that, the only constant is change, the only thing that always happens is change, is that dragonflies are ancient. Very similar dragonflies to the ones that we know were flying around on the earth hundreds of millions of years ago. So they are a reminder of the constancy of change. And I really like that as a message for dragonfly. I'm going to choose, finally, an animal for August, and this will be where I leave the updates. This time I've decided to pick from the Sawyer's Nature Portals deck by Jamie Sawyer. I have removed a few cards from it for the purposes of picking an animal, because there are a couple of animals in this deck that I've already had as an animal of the month from other decks this year. So I've already had Blue Jay, so I took that one out, and I've also already had, there was one other, Dragonfly, that we just had for July. So I did take out Blue Jay and Dragonfly, but from the rest of the deck, we'll choose an animal to learn about and share for August. one just flipped while shuffling. So I guess that one really wants to be picked. That's a bald eagle, which in the deck is just called eagle. But that's definitely a bald eagle, specifically. So, I will be learning about, maybe I'll have a little extra focus on bald eagles, but also eagles as a kind of family more generally, and particularly, of course, the eagles that live around me for the month of August. So, I will share my eagle messages a month from now. And I think that's about it for this month's recap. I'm sure I've rambled on for a ridiculous amount of time, as usual. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me for a bit. I will see you all in the next update video, of course, but certainly between now and then, I do have some ideas for content for August, a couple of videos that I've been planning on making for a while. Maybe I'll make some tag responses, who knows. It is a busy month for me in August with going back to school. As someone teaching courses, I'm doing a lot of syllabus prep and building out course websites and things like this. So I don't imagine that August will be my most YouTube productive month, but I do certainly intend to be here and look forward to watching, of course, other folks' content in the meantime as well. So thanks again for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you all soon.